How's it going? And welcome to episode 256 of On the Wire, a proud member of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. I am Adam Howe, joined as always by Kevin Hastings. Thank you all for listening, watching, however you're consuming our show. I appreciate it, Kevin, and I appreciate you being back here, even under duress. Hopefully everything's going fine, and you'll get back. I'm making it sound way worse than it is. You're obviously on your feet, but you're obviously also
I'm walking with a cane.
You're day to day.
I'm walking with a cane at 55 years old. So
hopefully,
the jokes are aplenty, but it's meant not a normal day job for a couple of weeks now, which has meant this time of year, Adam, I love the women's and men's college World Series, and got to watch all 4 opening games of the women's college World Series yesterday, and keeping track of quite a bit of what's going on with the opening days of regionals for the men's tournament, and a couple of big upsets. First time in history that the number 1 overall seed lost their first game of the tournament. Now, I do expect them to still come out of that regional UCLA, but sure, that's a big deal. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting to watch some of the extra baseball, as I like to call it, at the college rinks.
Nice. Yes. It is a nice luxury to have. I can't say the same as far as being able to follow all that, especially at this stage, but there are perks to the job, if you will, when you when you have nothing else to do. I do hope that your cane has, like, instead of like a diamond on the top, it's like a baseball or something, like something that's a little bit more themey. So that would be pretty cool.
My wife did volunteer to bedazzle it.
So. Oh, all right. Okay. Second best choice. There we go. All right. Well, a lot of red. And for those who don't know, I use the red color of the font for all the news items. So Kevin, we got to get into it. I'm going to do it in reverse chronological order. So the newest stuff that I saw is going to be first, and we'll make our way back through the week in case there was anything that you missed or you forgot about, since it's been a few days heading into the fab period. First and foremost, today is Friday. We're recording this. Munetaka Murakami did leave the game on Friday with right hamstring tightness. No word on whether or not he'll miss any future time. Could be nothing. There was word on like Connor Griffin being hurt yesterday on Thursday, and then he was back at it on Friday. So you'll have to see what's going to happen over the weekend before Fab. But if he were to miss any time, Kevin, what are the White Sox going to do?
Well, I think we see Luis Angel Acuna much more at third base, and move Vargas over to first base. That's my first guess. A couple of guys that mostly Acuna mostly plays versus lefties, so this wouldn't be a long-term thing. But if he's just going to miss a few days, if any time at all, if he's going to miss a few days, and this isn't an extended thing, something like that is what I'm going to keep my eye on over the weekend in anticipation for Sunday evening Fab. But we'll see what they do over the weekend. Murakami removed from the game on Friday, so he did get the start, but I kind of feel like without a roster move, which is also possible, but I think it would mean moving Vargas over to first base. And so that would open up third base for Acuna.
Sure. It's just kind of the worst when something like this happens on either Monday or Friday, and you can't do anything about it. By the time you're listening to this, it's too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Just wish it happened on a Thursday. I wish it didn't happen at all. Let me correct myself. But if it had to happen, wish it happened on a Thursday. I'll jump around a little bit only because we're talking about the White Sox earlier in the week. The White Sox also lost Noah Schultz to the IL with knee tendonitis in his right knee, which is his planting knee and is the knee that has bothered him in the past. They call up former Red Sox prospect David Sandlin to take his place in the rotation. What's your expectations on Sandlin with the White Sox?
I'm interested for this week. Of course, he's not rostered, so we have an opportunity here, and I do have interest with what we saw from him in that first outing. Obviously, he faced Minnesota, but he 6 innings, 1 batter over the minimum. He gave up 1 hit.
Right.
That was a solo home run, but and Minnesota, not the most dangerous lineup out there, but with projected starts at Minnesota once again on Monday and then at Philadelphia, that's a little scary, but I think that there's, last week we had more starting pitching options than it seemed like we'd had in a while. I think it's a little drier again this week. The way the rotations are lining up, the guys that we're going to see in matchups that we like are already rostered. So I think Sandlin's definitely in play this week.
Right. And it's just one of those timing issues where he'll probably go for a little bit more than he would have if he had made his debut last week.
With 2 starts and giving up 1 hit in 6 innings. Yeah,
that'll do it. Staying in the AL Central, over to Detroit, they lose a couple of pitchers as well. For them, it's Casey Mize leaving the rotation with an inflamed right abductor, and their closer, Kenley Jansen, right before him, hitting the IL with pelvic inflammation, which just sounds terrible. I'm sure it is terrible. It's probably worse than it sounds too. But with the opening in we should say Detroit also had Troy Melton return to the rotation after coming off the IL as well. But is that simply a 1-for-1 swap with Mize leaving the rotation, or is there somebody else coming in to fill that gap?
Melton's back on Friday, so he'll line up next Wednesday at Tampa. We're going to see Sawyer Gibson Long get the 2-step Monday at Tampa, at home versus Seattle, then over the weekend with Montero, Valdez, and Flaherty. And a couple of these guys, this is a pitching staff that we could probably attack with hitters right now. Flaherty hasn't been going good, and they're really banged up. So this is a rotation that I'm looking to target with hitters when I can.
There you go. And then Jansen leaving the IL leaves a gap at the top of the pecking order for the bullpen in Detroit. Kyle Finnegan, Drew Anderson, Tyler Holton as the strongest lefty in the bunch, probably not in the mix, but Drew Anderson did get a 35 pitch win on Wednesday. Finnegan also pitched in that game. Anderson got the last save of the Tigers this past Sunday, though it was a very long-winded save with 45 pitches. Who do you expect or trust to get the next opportunity?
I would guess Finnegan gets more opportunities than not. At the same time, AJ Hinch, he's going to play his matchups. I do think, in spite of being such a matchup and analytically inclined manager, he does still typically like to have a main guy in the 9th inning. At least that's my perception. So I'm leaning Finnegan, although I could see Vest, Holton, Anderson, any of the guys you mentioned getting shots.
Vest did pitch the 8th. Melton went 7 strong innings for the Tigers on Friday. Vest finished out the 8th, clean 8th inning with a strikeout and just 1 hit. So we'll see who comes out in the 9th inning, as they are currently in the top of the 9th, up by 1 over the White Sox. So as long as the White Sox don't do anything here, as long as Detroit doesn't score 3 or more runs at this top of the inning, we'll have an opportunity ahead of ourselves. We'll come back to that in a little bit.
And we hope whoever gets this opportunity does not get another one before Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think Finnegan is rostered in a bunch of my leagues already. So,
right. Yeah.
I mean, we'll, kind of hope it's Anderson, I guess. Eury Perez hits the IL for Miami, and with I actually don't know what part of this body this is, Kevin. Maybe you do. The right gracilis. What part? I gotta look it up. I probably should have done that before the show. But he'll be out for reportedly at least 8 weeks or 2 months or longer. Eury Perez not exactly lighting the world on fire before this as well. Easy drop at this point, and is there anything gonna replace him that you're interested in at this point?
Well, I do not know what a right gracilis is either, but Eury Perez had been a bench in many spots for most players for a little while now, hoping he'd come around. As you said, he wasn't lighting the world on fire, but the state of pitching currently, anybody we're losing right now is a big deal, especially with somebody with the talent of Eury Perez. But it appears we'll see Ryan Gusto here, and Tyler Phillips just came up recently as well. I think those two guys probably in there. At Washington for Ryan Gusto, there's some interest there.
Mm-hmm. All right. The gracilis is the inner muscle in your inner thigh. It is, quote, the thinnest muscle in the human body, which is pretty impressive. That you don't hear about that getting strained or torn more often, just based on that description. But it's in the adductor muscle group. So, so basically, inner thigh should be out for quite some time, especially needing all of that leg power to push your body forward while pitching. The Mets make some changes themselves into their rotation, officially moving David Peterson to the bullpen and giving Sean Manaea the job back in the rotation. As you reminded me just before recording, the Mets are also expecting to get Kodai Senga back early next week, probably Tuesday. Do you expect him to just kick Manaea out with this? This is a one trick pony or one spot start for Manaea, or what's your expectations moving forward for the Mets rotation?
Well, roster resource and RotoWire starting pitching projections for next week both have Jonah Tong probably losing his spot here, and that would be probably upsetting to a lot of Mets fans. He hasn't given up a run, but his most recent appearance, 4 walks and 3 hits in less than 4 innings. That's not ideal. He skated out of there facing 19 batters to get 11 outs. So yeah, that would make sense to me. That and that was at home in the at Citi Field. So yeah, I kind of tend to agree with that probably Tong is who we see getting sent back to AAA, but Tong's not somebody I would be interested in anyway. It's just a matter of what do we think we're going to get out of Manaea? Do we think we get him over the weekend as well? Mm-hmm. That makes a difference on how interested we'll be on Sunday night. So I tend to agree with them. I think we'll see Manaea again over next weekend.
Yeah. So you'll see, how the interest lies in this fab period. But if you are in that same boat and you expect Manaea to at least get another round the horn, another turn, he's at least worth putting in your 15 team waterfall bids. As you said, pickings are slim. So whether or not we think he'll be successful is another question altogether, but they're upgrading over Peterson, at least based on what he's been doing in their rotation. So we'll kind of have to wait and see here.
Yeah, Manaea's been giving up some walks in recently, but he has performed better overall over his last handful of outings. So this move makes sense for the New York Mets, and I think it could make sense for us. Although we haven't seen Manaea go over 4 innings yet this year. I'd much rather if they just told us that Manaea was going to follow Peterson.
Mhm.
That's the kind of news we'd like to hear. But yeah, this probably that he'll be far down my waterfall just because I don't think he'll go 5 innings.
Exactly. And just as an update,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say Kyle Finnegan came out for the 9th for the Tigers. We'll see how he ends up closing out this game for Detroit. All right. Moving over to St. Louis, they call up a couple of guys from AAA this week. One being catcher Jimmy Crooks and another outfielder Nelson Velasquez. Should they be in your? I mean, we talked a lot about needing catchers last week. They both replace other guys that were getting sent down at the same positions. So whether or not they're actually going to get any kind of playing time of note, but should we take interest? Should we be putting them in our waterfall bids for this on this Sunday?
So Nelson Velasquez hit a home run on Friday, and
he batted cleanup too.
And he does have 7 home runs with a better average in OBP than we've seen the last couple of seasons at AAA so far this season. But it's still nothing like that stretch we saw in 2023, where it's not just the 17 home runs in 50 some games. It's 14 of those 17 home runs in less than 6 weeks when he came over to Kansas City from the Cubs. And it was amazing. Fairly highly drafted in 2024 due to this, and a huge bust. Still a little bit of interest in 2025, even bigger bust. We haven't seen him at the major league level. I'm probably going to have more interest here than I should, especially with that home run on Friday, because I saw all 14 of those home runs happen in less than 6 weeks, right? I was watching those games. I'm probably more interested than I should be, but to your point, hitting cleanup 2 for 3 with that home run. Yeah, I'm interested in Velasquez here.
Yeah, I mean, both these guys take over for guys that weren't playing even every other day. It was like once a week. And Yoel Pozo and Cesar Prieto. Prieto playing mostly third base every 3 or 4 days, and then Pozo DHing 3 times in the last 3 weeks. So whether or not there's playing time for Velasquez to get everyday run is questionable. But because it's not as though St. Louis made room elsewhere. Nathan Church went on the IL last week. So that's not really a big difference here, big change. Brian Torres came in and filled his spot. And he's been playing every single day in left field for St. Louis, except on Friday. But yeah, we'll just see how much time. Crooks is obviously just a backup catcher. Herrera actually started at catcher today, with Pages being the pretty every other day catcher. So I expect Crooks to get in there once in a while, but not anything with any kind of meaningful playing time.
Yeah, I do expect to continue to see Velasquez, at least in the near future, in the lineup versus lefties. But this coming week, we can only count on that in 2 of their 6 games.
Yeah.
And they are split, one first half of the week and one over the weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, the worst.
I'm still going to have him in my waterfall.
Can't help yourself. Last thing before we take a break, we're going to go to Tampa Bay. They do the opposite. They send down one of their prospects, Carson Williams, back to AAA. Is again not as though Carson Williams was playing a whole lot anyway for the Rays, as he was, after getting called up 2 weeks ago, he started in 3 games, twice at second and once at shortstop on Wednesday before getting sent back down officially before Friday's game, because they got Ben Williamson back from the IL. He did start at shortstop on Friday. was a extremely short IL stint. I thought it was a 10-day IL, but he was only on the IL for 6 or 7 days. So did I read that wrong? Was it just a concussion IL?
It must have been, and it's
Yeah.
confusing because what you're reading was he was removed from Friday's game. He's been back, and he's already removed from a game. He got hit on the wrist. So it's a little confusing when you first pull up his page. We're seeing that he just came back off of a short IL stint and then was removed from the game on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Any indication on what we should be expecting? I mean,
I think they can reverse this move, right? Yeah, I think they just reversed the move.
I guess
it's what we saw.
If they officially put Williamson on the IL, they could reverse the move. But if they don't, if he just like day to day throughout the weekend, they'd have to wait until somebody gets put on the IL for Williams to come back up.
Yeah. Oliver Dunn is an option on the infield, and that's who took Williamson's place on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Taylor Wall's dealing with his own injury for the last couple of days, not officially placed on the IL himself. So if that worsens, that could be an option as well. And that was the main reason why Williamson got the start. I mean, that's why Williams got the start on Wednesday. Williamson got the start on Friday before getting pulled. So kind of, it's really just revolving around who they have to play, or at least to start at the shortstop position over the weekend. All right. Like I said, that's going to be the last thing we do before we get in a break, but we got lots more news to touch on. So I'm going to go catch my breath, get a drink of water, and we'll be right back. All right, Kevin, a bunch of non-closer relievers hit the IL this week. And just want to get your take on whether or not we should really care if these guys were, in line for saves, and now obviously they shouldn't be on your radar anymore. Cincinnati's Graham Ashcraft goes right to the 60-day IL, skips the 15-day IL altogether with a UCL sprain. Yennier Cano for Baltimore hits the IL with hamstring discomfort. And then earlier in the week, Cleveland's Eric Sabrowski hit the IL with left elbow inflammation, which is kind of the worst. Any of these guys hitting you at all in any of your leagues?
Sabrowski in the Holds League I'm in, and I did have him stashed in a couple spots thinking he could be the guy that would take over if anything happened with Cade Smith, and he was pitching phenomenally this season. So he was one of my ratios guys that I had been using, as we often talk about here on the show. So I think that's the biggest. Graham Ashcraft, we were at times thinking he could be a possibility in Cincinnati. That situation still has not played itself out, but the only one I'm going to miss here is Sabrowski. And, we have Garcia in Baltimore and Nunez, who Rick Graham, when this situation first came about in Baltimore with the Helsley injury, he thought Nunez should get the job, but that Garcia would. And Nunez, we saw with with at least one opportunity this week. So that may be coming to pass. And Nunez, the guy to keep an eye on there in Baltimore.
Yeah, I saw Nunez in my daily leagues get picked up like 3 times this week. It's just one of those things where it's like, I think this is the dude.
His availability is going to vary greatly between leagues.
Yeah, of course. Couple of returnees across 2 main rotations here, and I'm curious to know which one you're more excited about. Jared Jones, talked about last week. I did not get to go to the game on Saturday. I'm very disappointed in myself. But we all got to see him pitch back in Pittsburgh on Friday. It didn't go terribly well. 4 1/3, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, gave up a pair of home runs and 7 hits. But did make his return, and that is exciting. They did officially shift the Pirates, that is, shifted Carmen Mlodzinski to the bullpen, though he had been, I felt like he'd been following quite a bit. So technically he was in the bullpen for a while. on and off. And then the Giants also got back a piece of their rotation, in Logan Webb, and he is still pitching, I believe. Yeah, he's still pitching. The Giants are up 3-1 as they're recording this in the bottom of the fourth. So Webb he is in the middle of the bottom of the fourth. He's already gone 3 2/3. He's only let up 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, and 3 walks, though, in that short period of time. So which one of them, I mean, Jones, where he is available, which is far and few between, obviously is going to be bid on quite a bit on Sunday. Logan Webb is not available anywhere. Are you more likely to bid a high number on Jared Jones, or just if you're in a league where you have Logan Webb, are you still also bidding high for Jared Jones?
Yes, high for me.
Fair.
Yeah. And that's worked out for me in a couple of spots this season, going a little higher on some of the bigger fab players coming up and becoming available. Yeah, let's see. Jared Jones this week. We're looking at Houston. Now their lineup hasn't been as brutal to face as it was earlier in the season here recently, with Altuve down and Jordan banged up. So not as bad of an outing as it would have been, say 3-4 weeks ago, but a little tentative for this week in particular. And we'll see Logan Webb at Milwaukee, not much better. I think actually Milwaukee's park is playing not as much of a hitter's park as I perceive that it typically does so far this season. Talked a little bit about that last week. I think I'm in on Jones. I may or may not even get him in my lineup this week, which means in 12s, maybe I'm not as in as I think I am. But in 15s, I'm definitely in on Jared Jones at, I'm not going to go triple digits, which means in some leagues I won't be bidding enough, but I think, $60 to $80 bids in some 15 team leagues. Not a lot, but in some that may land him. And if I'm lucky enough in my leagues, that's where I'll get him.
Jared Jones is way more available than I thought he would be, at least in 12 teamers. In the OCs, he's only 10% rostered in the OCs. So in the main event, only 32% rostered. Now, that could be a mix of just not have been drafted, and thus nobody could be picking him up until now, and those who drafted him and dropped him since. But still, he's going to be available now that he's made his 2026 debut in at least 2/3 of 15 teamers and 90% of your main events. So yeah,
I'd say nearly all of the leagues he's available in, he was not drafted because we knew Sunday we were going to see him this week.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And so you knew where you were getting.
Versus Minnesota didn't go as well as we would have hoped, but we'd have had him in there versus Minnesota.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's been scoring more runs than we anticipated they might, but I'm still not scared of them.
Yeah, I mean, most of those runs were scored in that game I went to back in April against the Red Sox. But it's it was funny. They were in first place for so long at the beginning, at least in the AL Central and in the American League in general. And then just seems to be ebbing and flowing for the Twins throughout the season so far in this short season. Let's head over to the West Coast, where the Dodgers reportedly lost Teoscar Hernandez with a hamstring strain, and then Kike Hernandez has a significant tear in his left oblique, and he'll be out for quite some time. No timeline was reported, but Dave Roberts reported that he expects to be out, quote, for a while. With both of them, especially Hernandez being out, how are the Dodgers filling in the holes?
Well, fortunately, Max Muncy was back on Wednesday, so they slid him in at third base, and they called Alex Freeland back up to play at second base. I kind of thought it would be funny, they finally let Chris Taylor. They finally let him go after all these years and multiple times when Hernandez came back off the IL. And I really thought, do they re-sign him? Do they bring him back right away this quickly? But they're giving Alex Freeland another shot here. He showed some flashes, but didn't make adjustments after he was adjusted too. So we'll see if that's a couple of weeks down at AAA, if he got some things figured out. Alex Call has got the couple of starts in the outfield, and they also called up Ryan Ward. I expect we'll probably see him versus lefties.
Sure. Ryan Ward, one of their, top 20 prospects in the Dodgers organization. Freeland, obviously in the top 10, has already made his debut. So we'll see how much time Ward gets in there, but as you said, short side of platoon makes a little bit more sense.
Well, he hits lefty, but that's really the only way I see him getting into this lineup, because I think for the most part against righties, unless this becomes a long-term thing, and they make another move or decide that they want to work Ryan Ward in there on a more regular basis, I think Alex Call gets most of the playing time. And so they'll let Ryan Ward in there versus some lefties maybe. But
whether or not it's against lefties or if he's just used to spell time for everybody else across the board, giving, Tucker a day off, giving, moving guys around. Pajes or I don't know if Ward can play center field, but he probably not. He's more of a corner guy. But yeah, I could see him being more of a guy that kind of just spells time, in both corners. Maybe even, Freddie Freeman needs a day off every once a month or something like that. Speaking of call ups, that was a terrible segue. Toronto called up their prospect, Charles Mcadoo. He plays all over the infield. He could play multiple infield positions. How do you expect Toronto to use him now that he is up in the majors?
Sparingly. This seems to be a 1-for-1 with Lennon Sosa going on the IL, and unfortunately Sosa, due to not performing as well as he had in 2025. And just what Toronto getting, Jimenez, Ernie Clement's been playing well, and these other guys that can play all over the field in their lineup on a daily basis. Lennon Sosa was getting very limited playing time. And so unfortunately that's what I see probably here with Mcadoo as well.
Yeah, Sosa hitting the IL with wrist contusion. He looked like he might get an extra day or two when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had a little bit of a scare. Sosa getting plugged in there at first base, but Guerrero came roaring back after just missing 2 games. And then Sosa goes on the IL officially right after that. So we won't see him for a little bit.
Davis Schneider went to the IL as well. That frees up he was playing very sparingly as well, but it's Mcadoo appears to be the only bench infielder that Toronto has at the moment. So that could help a little bit as well. Maybe he does get a little bit of playing time here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Ernie Clement can play all over the place, but he's been playing pretty much every day at second base. And Mcadoo did get the start at second base against the lefty when they finally moved Clement over to shortstop on Friday.
Yeah, Jimenez sits versus lefties, and every lefty, uncommon for a shortstop, as we talk about, but he does.
Yeah. So it does. Well, I mean, it's only been one day, but it does seem like the avenue for a short slide platoon fill in for Mcadoo maybe with a couple of extra spot starts if they see any more injuries or just need to give some rest to the rest of the infield, is how we're going to see Mcadoo being used throughout the course of the next week or two. We move over to Houston. They are expecting just more of a PSA. This is not big news. Josh Hader is expected to be back early next week. Should be noted that he had his final rehab outing and it did not look that great. But all indications are he still will be activated for the Astros early next week as well. And I would assume he will still go right into that closer position. Do you expect the Astros to ease him back in or to throw him right back into the fire upon bringing him back up?
I expect him to throw him right back in. He's had an extended rehab, several outings. Most of them have been excellent. That's why I'm not worried about this final rehab outing at all. I think it was, I'm going to get out here and throw the ball up there until we get 3 outs and not re-injuring this arm because I'm going to be back in Houston next week.
All right. Well, make sure you get him back into your lineups for on Monday when you're setting those weekly lineups as well. The Angels place Nolan Schuanel on the IL with a left ankle inflammation. They bring back up Nick Madrigal. Is this a 1-for-1 to your expectations, Kevin, or is there any other moves that the Angels should be making to shore up that infield or that first base spot?
Well, it's kind of intriguing. Schuanel has been down for the past 5 games, and Friday was the first game that we saw Schuanel, or excuse me, Nick Madrigal in the lineup. We saw Vaughn Grissom has been the beneficiary here, getting at bats versus righties playing first base. Every game since Schuanel went down. I think this is the beneficiary here. He'd been getting spot starts, maybe half at most versus righties and versus all lefties. But for right now, Vaughn Grissom is the everyday first baseman, hitting third in the lineup. So definitely worth looking at. We brought him up the last week or two. You did ask about more playing time, and here it is. Nolan Schuanel, unfortunately, going to the IL is what it took. But here's Vaughn Grissom playing every day.
Yeah, I think you were the one who brought it up too. It's like Josh Lowe got sent down last week, and so Vaughn Grissom's name got pulled up as a possible beneficiary of that. That didn't take. 2 days later, Schuanel gets hurt, and now Grissom's in there pretty much every single day, like you said, filling in at first base. All right. Well, again, staying with the AL West, the Texas Rangers, they DFA Andrew McCutchen, which is just unfortunate. And they signed Nicky Lopez to a major league contract to replace him as a 1-for-1. Does McCutchen bother signing on somewhere else, or is he, perfectly happy? I mean, do we even care? Is he producing at this point where you're actually going to take notice depending on where he signs? But we're seeing a handful of guys do this already. We're going to talk about one next on the pitching side. And then, Tommy Pham is always doing this for the last 3 or 4 years. Is this just who Andrew McCutchen is going to end up being to end out his career? Or is this, does he just say, all right, we're good here?
I really hope the Pirates sign him.
Sure.
That's my hope. And maybe not a one day thing. Marcelo Zuna is not doing anything at the plate. He can go out and do what Marcelo Zuna is doing as a designated hitter, which is what he has been the past couple of seasons. So that's my hope. But I won't have fantasy interest.
Yeah, fair. Not exactly, playing every day for the Rangers before getting DFA'd either. He is officially a free agent now, and so we will see where he ends up signing on to see somebody has an opportunity besides the Pirates, though. That does make, he's a Pirate, right? Like, just that's who he is.
Yeah.
And the other one that we keep seeing get bounced around is Craig Kimbrel. As we mentioned earlier or last week, he got DFA'd, and now he finds a new home, a new jersey to put on. This time is going to be a major league contract with the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Rays placed Jesse Schultens on the IL with a right wrist strain to, well, not make room for it. But either way, Kimbrel now joins the bullpen of the Rays. Should anybody who rosters and has been pleasantly surprised by Baker at the end of the Rays bullpen be scared at all?
No.
All right, cool.
Kimbrel may get an appearance or two in the 9th inning, but it would be Days Baker was going to get a break anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll save that one for last. Toronto placed Dylan Cease on the IL earlier in the week with a hamstring injury. Have you noticed what Toronto's going to be doing with their rotation? Obviously, with missing kind of a big piece there with Cease on the IL.
Yeah, Toronto will continue to see Spencer Miles, and they look primed to bring Austin Voth. He was pitching on Friday as a follower at Baltimore, and then is listed as the starter for next Thursday. Of course, that's not official, not listed by the team, but that is the speculation we're seeing, is that Austin Voth will get the start next Friday.
Mm-hmm.
It's been he was an NPB last season, so Voth just coming back. We've only seen a couple of innings. I doubt he's stretched out yet. That's why he's going to be the follower this first start, so I don't know what kind of innings we're going to get. But some of these guys that we have seen that we Austin Voth in his 60 innings in 2024 had a 3.69 ERA for Seattle. Of course, that was 68 relief appearances. He went to NPB and had 22 starts in 2025. We've seen these guys come back and perform, I don't want to say better than I would have expected when we saw this happen a few years ago, I would say. We've seen some guys, Eric Fetty comes to mind, show us a little bit of success. So there may be a little bit of interest here in Voth, but I'm taking a wait and see approach. I know that means I'll be behind. Somebody else may snatch him up for next to nothing before I'm ready to, but I just got to see him get stretched out here.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not you're going to spend any kind of what limited cash a lot of us have still in a few of our leagues on somebody who's you're not even sure they're going to get stretched out. Never mind, they're not currently stretched out. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to justify. Last piece. This is it's good timing. I'm glad I saved this one for the end. Just because we got some quote breaking news out of the Athletics as well to pair with it. But the big debut of the week was Gage Jump joining the Athletics rotation, making his MLB debut earlier in the week. Did go 5 innings in his start. Did also take the loss. 9 hits, 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and just I can't even see how many walks he might have had. But with a 4% walk rate, there it is, just one walk. So that's good. I mean, that part's good. With that though, just happened today on Friday, Luis Severino did exit the game on Friday before the start of the second inning. No word on why that I can see so far, but the rotation of the Athletics is it's obviously not as bad as Colorado, but you still don't love having half of your games in West Sacramento. Because they're equally going to be available, Gage Jump and Jared Jones, are they going to be your expectation going to be they're going to be the 1-2 in everybody's waterfall?
Not mine.
Okay.
I mean, I like Gage Jump, but I'm not going to go spend a whole lot of money on him when I won't use him for a 2-start this week, a 2-step. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm not spending a lot of money on somebody I won't use in a 2-step, but at the Cubs, as it's heating up in Chicago, we're into June, and at Houston, yeah, I'm not going to risk that with somebody we've only seen one outing from.
It's good to just have that mentality, knowing that somebody in your league will not have that mentality. Let them spend the money, let them throw the cash around, just because it's a pretty face. Luis Severino missing any possible time. I mean, you pull somebody out, you pull your starter after just one inning. I mean, regardless of what it might be, I'm not excited about it. Is there, I mean, if nothing else, maybe this keeps Gage Jump up a little bit longer, whether or not there was any consideration of him just, coming up for a week or two and then going back down. But what are you doing with Severino if he is placed on the IL, if anything?
Yeah, unfortunately, we would probably be looking elsewhere. They just had Aaron Savale go on the IL as well after last week. I said I couldn't believe I was saying I was interested, and then he got blown up. I apologize to anybody that used Savale this week, or that was this week that he got blown up, wasn't it? After I brought him up last week, yeah. So, yeah, Oakland's in a tight spot here. We probably see. I'm guessing we're going to see a bullpen day this week while they figure it out themselves, if Severino does miss more time. But as you alluded to, a little over an inning, unless it's a very mild blister or just something kind of weird, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, you gotta expect. I mean, just looking at, they have a handful of guys that are on the 40-man roster sitting in AAA as starters and have had experience already. Joey Estes, Luis Morales come to mind, or at least they pop out as making their debuts already. Whether or not those are the names that the Athletics are considering, they might not have a choice, right? as you mentioned, losing Savale and then possibly Severino, they're kind of in a tight spot. They already called up Gage Jump to pretty much solidify that rotation. There's only so many times that they can do bullpen games, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how many spot starts they can do in West Sacramento. All right, that is finally it. We've hit the end of the road with our Fab-related news, and now we're going to take another quick break, come back, and talk about actual recommendations for our pickups. All right, Kevin. We went through a lot of news, of course, a whole bunch of other news that could have been talked about. And if you're listening to the First Pitch podcast every day, you already knew all about those. And then, of course, Nick Pollock's with Plus Pitch podcast every weekday. He had some fun news as well. Shout out to Jay Crumpler, who does most of the First Pitch podcast. He'll be doing some of the Plus Pitch podcasts later on this summer as well. So you'll be getting every day 2 daily podcasts every single day of the week, right on the Pitcher List Podcast Network, to learn all about what's going on to win your fantasy league. So make sure you're subscribed, you're throwing a good review, letting other people know all about it. Hopefully just not everybody in your league, just everybody else outside of your league, right? But at the same time, whatever you can do to go out there and support the podcast network in general is greatly appreciated. So please, if you guys can go out and do that. I know Nick has like a promotion where if you put a review, a 5-star review, and take a screenshot of it and then send it to him, he'll give you a promo. And I don't know exactly what it was, but it will be a promotion. I'm not going to make up stuff. But like, I know you'll get a promotion on like PL Plus for the next like month or two or something like that. So just go take advantage of that. Why not? And Kevin, we got to fill in some power for our leagues, as that might be the categories that you're struggling in the most. Who is out there to fill the gap in home runs and RBI?
I'm going back to the well in Minnesota. I've brought up these couple of guys multiple times this season when Minnesota is facing heavy right-handed lineup as they do this coming week. Both Cody Clemens is playing nearly every day, especially versus the righties, hitting well, and Trevor Larnach. And Larnach's overall numbers don't look as good as in my mind he has been. He did not play much for the first month of the season at all. Minnesota faced a ton of lefties the first month of the season, and these guys didn't really start playing every day until the first week in May. So I continue to go back to the well with both of these Minnesota Twins versus lefties. And the more I think about it, Adam, and in places where I have room, I'm going to stash Nelson Velasquez and see what happens here. See if we start seeing some at-bats versus righties. I expect them to be just versus lefties, but I don't think we'll ever see a streak like he had in 2023 again, but I do think there will be a time in the future and possibly this season where we'll be happy to have Nelson Velasquez in our lineups.
There you go. All right. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, last week, I don't think we mentioned him. Tyler O'Neill was a recommendation for PLBot. I will say he's been playing every day against lefties, and Baltimore's been facing a lot of lefties, and they get 2 out of 4 on the first half of the week against my Red Sox this coming week as well in Fenway Park. So Tyler O'Neill, while healthy, is out there in your leagues. Could be a short, take advantage of at least those 2 games, even though he only has 3 out of 4 games in that week with the Monday off day. 2 of them they're in Fenway against expected lefty starters for the Red Sox. So Tyler O'Neill could be somebody to put at the bottom of your waterfall bids if you're looking for a little bit of power. Kevin, get me some speed though. I'm still you had some good names for me last week, but I still need more. So who's out there that can steal me a base or 2?
Yeah, I came across someone late on Sunday and shot you a quick text,
and I didn't even get him everywhere. Like I thought I was getting aggressive based on your text, but I didn't even get him everywhere.
Yeah, Blake Dunn in Cincinnati all of a sudden is the everyday leadoff hitter, and this may stick because he's getting on base, and no one else that they've tried in this spot this season has gotten on base. Matt McClain was slumping when he was in the leadoff spot, and so Blake Dunn not long ago had over 50 stolen bases in the minor leagues. If I'm remembering correctly, I want to say 2023, something like that. So 52% rostered now in 15s, I think about 11% in 12s, but the everyday leadoff hitter, even versus a lefty for Cincinnati. I think as long as he can get on base at all for Cincinnati, he's going to hold this spot for a while.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you see a change in the leadoff spot and it ends up being filled by somebody who has a lot of history in running, you've got to take notice. And it doesn't hurt that he's playing most of his games in Great American Small Park as well. So definitely worth your time, and still, as you mentioned, readily available just about half of those leagues. Esther Ruiz, people must have been listening because his ownership his rostership didn't go all the way up, but is up to 35% now in 15 teamers. So still available for Miami. Another one, a name that comes up as at least on the stolen base expectations for PLBot is Jake Mangum of Pittsburgh. Suggested or projected for at least 1 full stolen base on the week. and not somebody that should be hurting your batting average while doing so as well. So just, he's still available in over half of the leagues in your 15 teamers. So if you're looking for an outfielder with a little bit of speed, Mingnam could be somebody who's readily available as well. All right. When we got, like I mentioned with Tyler O'Neill, there's certain teams that have more opportunity ahead of themselves than others. Baltimore not being one of them with the off day on Monday. And that is most teams with this 6-game work week, but there are 6 teams that have 7 games. A lot of numbers in there. You got to follow along. The 7-game work week includes Kansas City, Minnesota, Milwaukee, Arizona, the Dodgers, and the San Francisco Giants. Everybody else, as I mentioned, has 6 games with days off either Monday or Thursday. Colorado splitting their time home and away. They'll be away in Anaheim for 3, and then they host the Brewers for 3 in Colorado. Cincinnati also splitting in the opposite direction. They will be hosting your Royals, Kevin, for 3 to start the week, and then heading to the complete opposite style stadium in St. Louis for 3 over the weekend. The Athletics will be away from West Sacramento all week, as you mentioned earlier, with 3 at the Cubs and then 3 at Houston, and hopefully returning back to West Sacramento, at least for the Bats, the following week. But with all that and everything else that you want to consider, who looks like they have some decent matchups, good opportunity ahead of themselves for the next week that we can take advantage of?
Yeah, so I originally had Cody Clemens in this category, and one quick thing I want to add on him, the reason I had him down here, he's not available at all in 15s, but he's available in a whole lot of 12s. He's one of these guys that, due to his position eligibility, I believe, first base, second base, outfield, he's 100% rostered in 15s, but he's available in almost 70% of 12s. A guy with less availability in 12s, but some availability in 15s, Garrett Mitchell in Milwaukee. And I almost used him in the speed category as well. He has stolen a few bases on the season. That's what we'd like to see from him. But the guy I'm really keeping an eye on here, and he's been getting on base. He's hitting in the 9-hole. I think he scored a run coming into Friday. I think he scored a run in each of the 4 games he started prior to this, and that's Tommy Troy in Arizona. He's sitting in the 9-hole, but he's playing every day, including the 1 game versus a lefty, 4 straight now versus righties. He's going to be out there in the outfield for Arizona on a regular basis for the near future. So this is a good volume play, I think. I know he's hitting 9th, but he is scoring runs thanks to that top of Arizona's lineup.
Yeah, he's been pretty much taking over for Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who hit the IL last weekend. I wonder if Arizona's also expecting to get or hoping to get Pavin Smith back as well at sometime next week. So I wonder how that will play out as far as playing time in the rotation. Not saying Pavin Smith will take over in left field, but even if he, chips away at a little bit of playing time, that could, be a factor.
They're not going to do that. We've been begging to get regular playing time from Pavin Smith for 3 seasons.
If they haven't given it to us yet, why would they start now? Name to throw out there only because I've seen them getting picked up in my daily league moves leagues as well. Curtis Mead is getting pretty much everyday playing time for the Washington Nationals, especially after the demotion of Brady House over there in Washington, and performing quite well and being in like the 3-hole pretty much the entire time. Either batting second or third, playing pretty much every day at third base for the Nationals, lefties and righties alike. Since House and Weimer got sent down on the 19th, Mead has started every game but 1 since the 20th. So, being in the top third of the lineup and performing while there can get the eyes of pretty much everybody, including PL Bot. So he's right at the top. Alex Call, as we talked about earlier, should be getting the majority of the playing time for the Dodgers, is 0% rostered across the board, from what I can tell as well. So that could be some opportunity if you're just looking for some added playing time, on a obviously good roster. 3
home runs in those 7 starts as well.
Yeah. Hence the performing admirably. So I appreciate the specifics of my generalities.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our hitter suggestion at the moment. We'll get into our pitchers, but first we're going to take another quick break. All right, Kevin, you said that the well was drying up when it comes to pitchers, at least in comparison to last week's options. But there's got to be somebody. We got to spend our money somehow to get some wins and strikeouts. Who's out there?
Yeah, we talked about David Sandling. Obviously, I am interested in him this week. Troy Melton. Friday was his 2026 debut, so he's got quite a bit of availability out there. He's at Tampa. I think I say this every week about somebody. Tampa can score some runs, but I'm not running away from them as good as they've performed overall as a team. Stephen Kolek in Kansas City prior to Friday in Texas had been performing pretty well. But going to Cincinnati, that's going to tamper my expectations there. I do like that Mike Burrows in Houston. Not a lot of availability, but he gets Pittsburgh this week. We'll get Lance McCullers then back for the weekend in Houston, I believe. There was one other one I wanted to bring up other than the guys that we had in the news and notes. We talked about Gusto a bit in Washington. We talked about, let's see, where did he go?
Well, just as a little bit of correction. Sorry, Kevin. Troy Melton made his debut earlier in the week. Friday, his start today was his second start back. He made his debut, I'm pretty sure it was on Sunday. So he wasn't available.
It was Sunday. That's why we couldn't get him last week.
We still couldn't bid on him, but
that's why.
He's had 2 very good return starts, which doesn't do anything but increase the amounts that we're going to see on bids for this weekend.
Yeah, it's this week's like I said, it's back to what, kind of slim pickings like we'd been talking there for several weeks prior to last week. And I think we just got lucky with a few of the matchups we liked being guys that were available last week. It's pretty slim pickings out there. So to your point, yeah, I'm going to be bidding a little higher than I'm typically comfortable with on the likes of Jared Jones and probably David Sandlin and a couple of other guys.
Yeah, it seems like there's quite a few traps when it comes to the 2-start options out there, as you mentioned. Chad Patrick also with a 2-starter available pretty much, in half of 15 teamers, but that second start is at Colorado. As we always say, Colorado doesn't scare me. But obviously it's still in Denver. That's the problem.
Right. Trevor McDonald, San Francisco, at Milwaukee, at the Cubs.
Yeah, no thanks. And obviously Trevor McDonald had his little hiccup last week as well. So
right.
Not instilling a ton of confidence for a 2-start week with those matchups as well. All right. Well, if we're kind of playing it safe this week then and not trying to blow up our ratios, maybe we can go the opposite direction, Kevin, and we can pad our ratios. Who's out there that can help our ERA and WHIP, whether they are also going to make their way into a vulture win or a vulture save. That'd be nice, but we really just care about
I love it. Yeah, adding to the list because in some leagues I'll be replacing my ratios guy this week. It was Eric Zabrowski in Cleveland. So I am looking at I think we get Brock Stewart back this week for the Dodgers. Is the intent. So he will be someone I'm interested in. If we do indeed get word that we'll see him this week, I do have interest in Brock Stewart when he's back with the Dodgers. And another guy that I keep bringing up, and he's just not rostered anywhere, and that's Brooks Raley. He's been pitching very well. And so he's another guy that I'd like to bring up again, just because he's been out there performing well all season long. And Sam Hentges in San Francisco, that's somebody I hadn't really looked at in quite some time. 29 years old. We've seen him in the past, but as a reliever now, this season, we have a 0 ERA in 6 innings so far. The whip is a little higher, but the strikeouts are there, and this San Francisco bullpen has been a mess. So you never know when you might get a win or a save out of anybody in that bullpen.
Just based on ratios alone, we didn't talk about this in the news, but I guess it's worth bringing up. The Brewers brought back up Coleman Crow. He did start today on Friday. Only went 4 innings. Got 1 strikeout. Just 2 walks and 4 hits though. So according to PLBot, he would still he faces just the 1 start against the Giants next week. So not terribly scared of that, but if he can, keep the ball on the ground and, avoid being singled out, and what have you, he did give up a home run today in those 4 innings, but, could be a decent ratio play here, especially if he kind of sticks more long-term. So just know that he is out there and available pretty much everywhere. I think he is 0% rostered across the board. Yes, he is.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could say similar things about Luinder Avila for Kansas City, but that start at Cincinnati on Monday, I just can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the matchups obviously play a big role here. And then of course Troy Melton, Jared Jones being the next 2 guys when it comes to ratio plays for PLBot. Not a surprise. All right, we talked about Kenley Jansen giving up that closer role. We talked about Josh Hader coming back and probably filling in the closer role for the Astros right away. And obviously we talked about Craig Kimbrel not really being an impact on the closer situation in Tampa Bay, but is there any other closer situation or bullpen situation that you're monitoring heavily for this FAB period?
Is Yendrys Gomez going to be a thing in Minnesota? Or is this just is this going to be one of the 142 guys we've had get a save this season now? I think that's the number now. It's over 140, Adam.
Crazy.
It's only been a couple of weeks since we were thinking it was crazy. We were hitting 100. Now it's 140 some players. But we the ERA and WHIP aren't great, but this is all about opportunities, and he's gotten a couple, and that's who I'm seeing projected to get the opportunities this coming week for Minnesota is Yendrys Gomez.
Well, there's plenty of us out there that are in very desperate mode already.
I am one of them.
May's not even over yet, so desperate times come for desperate measures, and sometimes you just gotta eat it and take the chance, and hopefully you get 1 save. Like you said, is it somebody that's just going to be tacking on to the 142
at this point? That's all I want.
That's all I need. Well, he did get a save already, as you said, on Tuesday, so he's already added on to that. Whether or not he continues to tack onto that is going to be the question. Not that there's not a lot of rotational change, if you will. Tyler Rogers did get a save for Toronto on Wednesday, but Louis Varland got the save on Thursday as well, with Jeff Hoffman getting a pair of wins in a setup role for the Blue Jays as well. So seems like Varland's still kind of like the main guy there, even though Hoffman got a save over the past weekend as well. But not too worried about that situation. Maybe just keep an eye on. It's more of like, I think if there's an injury in the Toronto bullpen, that's where you have to start really paying more attention to that situation. Just scanning through, it's like it hasn't been a lot of turmoil, if you will, beyond what we've already talked about.
And I already being behind when we started finally, some people would say, started seeing Jack Perkins get opportunities in Oakland or in West Sacramento for the Athletics. To finally say it correctly. Third time's a charm. I did spend some money on Jack Perkins. Since then, we have seen Hogan Harris back in the mix again. And now the Athletic with the highest projection I'm looking at for saves this coming week is Mark Leiter, who many people have speculated should be the guy getting the opportunities all season long. So things are still up in the air out there in West Sacramento. They are on the road this week, so that is a help if someone like Mark Leiter interests you.
Yeah, I mean, Perkins is interesting just because we talked about earlier just the situation with the Athletics. If Severino misses time, Perkins, went 4 2/3 on Monday.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's being stretched out.
Right.
So he might be that option that I said that they didn't have in general as well for, in that rotation. So I don't know, maybe you get something out of them, out of that money spent, but just not in the way you expect, not in the way you expected or even hoped. All right. Well, going back a little bit, we got a little bit more news on the first item that we talked about today in the news section with Murakami. Manager Venable said that he expects Murakami to be out a quote couple of weeks for the White Sox. So I don't know exactly what the injury they found to be, but what I just saw come through the wire, if you will, has him out for a couple weeks. So forcing you to go back and take a look at that situation and what we might have talked about, you still expect that to be a Luis Henio Acuna situation where he just gets a little bit more playing time at third base.
The way the roster sits right now, yes, I think it would. I think it would take a move. I think it would take a move from outside the organization for it not to be Acuna. 2 weeks, that's kind of in that gray area of whether I expect that to be the case or not. Mm-hmm. Until we see a move, that's what I expect.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, we probably won't see a move until tomorrow. Right. And by the time you're listening to this, you already know what the move is, so don't worry about us. All right, well, that could be the wild card that we're considering for this week. It may not be, but we're gonna find out what that is right after this break. All right, Kevin. A lot of nice to get the last second news piece before I get to the very end of the episode, and leaves us more time to spend focusing on the wild card section here. Who is Kevin Alcantara did get the call up before, and he got into a game before our fab period, so he was available to be bid on this past Sunday. You brought him up 2 weeks ago. Let's see if we can make it 2 for 3 with what you have for us to consider this week.
Yeah, I was pretty excited last Sunday with Alcantara and Pedro Ramirez, two Cubs we talked about this season, and we texted a little bit, and unfortunately, there's just not a lot of playing time for either one. And I get this for a team like the Cubs, right? These guys probably give them a better chance of winning games than the guys they replaced. Mm-hmm. In spite of, they would like to see them getting everyday at bats as young players. But so I kind of get it for a team in the position that the Cubs are. I typically do not bring up prospect pitchers, especially for a team that currently has a starting rotation of George Kirby, Brian Wu, Emerson Hancock, Logan Gilbert, and Bryce Miller pitching very well right now. At least in the 3 or 4 outings we have seen since his return. But at some point, they're going to need another guy, and I'm not so sure it's not going to be just 2025 draft pick Cade Anderson. He is doing exactly what they hoped he would do when they drafted him last summer, and that is pick up right where he left off with LSU. And I think he has like a 1.35 ERA at AA right now. In fact, let's take a look here really quick. 1.63 ERA. I'm sorry. I was giving him too much credit. 0.81 whip. We've seen 38 innings, 58 strikeouts in those 38 innings. And this was a college arm that we expected to see very soon. In fact, the outlook over at RotoWire says he may only need a dozen starts before we see him at the major league level. That was prior to this season, prior to him going out there and throwing 58 strikeouts in 38 innings with a 1.6 ERA. So I think at some point we're going to see him. Seattle will, one of those guys will need a break at some point. So in leagues where you are able to go out and stash a guy that we have not seen at the major league level, I think, and in other leagues, I just the numbers alone, when people get word that this guy is getting a call, will make him outrageously expensive. But definitely want to keep an eye out for when that happens.
Yeah, my allegiances here went in a completely different direction. When you were talking about Seattle, my mind went to Ryan Sloan, who is, also performing admirably. That's going to be my new word that I use.
Love it.
With 31 innings in his 6 games in the minors, with striking out 38 in that time period as well. So, the whip's not as good, ERA is not as good overall, but I'm excited to see Ryan Sloan make his debut. I'm curious to see what they do as far as like which one of these guys makes a debut. Neither one of them are on the 40-man roster. There some news that we left out as well is just the inconsistency of communication, I guess, the Seattle has made with Luis Castillo and Bryce Miller as far as how they're handling their whole piggyback situation is interesting. I guess they're just not communicating very well with them, and obviously probably Castillo more so, but they're both not too happy about how they're being used at the moment. We'll see how long that situation tends to roll itself out. And if they do separate them, they have 6 healthy starters, as you mentioned. So it might take more than one injury to see for Seattle to feel as though they need to make this kind of a move. And, we are getting closer and closer to the middle of June, which is typically your Super 2 deadline as well, your mystery deadline that we never know what it's going to be until after the fact. But we just always assume it's sometime in June. So it might be a little bit before we consider either one of these guys at making their MLB debut. Do you think there's a strong possibility they both make their debut this season, whether or not it's now or in, late August, early September?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Regardless of the situation, I mean, Seattle obviously has aspirations of making the playoffs. They're going to want to, even if these guys stay healthy, they want them healthy in September, right? in October.
Exactly.
So if they have an opportunity to make their debut just to give some guys an extra day off or whatever, they probably do that, as long as these two guys are also consistently staying healthy themselves as well.
I also last week I brought up Jacob Gonzalez and the White Sox organization. So I reached out to our friend Mike Carter to ask him if he'd heard anything. He said all kinds of things from the fans. Everybody is clamoring for him, but unfortunately, no he's not even being mentioned by the team yet.
Yeah, well, keep just you force the issue, fans.
Yeah, he's still hitting home runs. So.
Sooner or later, even a team like the White Sox, they got to take notice, especially if they're continuing to improve and do what they need to do. Hey, maybe that's the move that you're looking for with Murakami being out for a couple weeks, and that shifts out the home run, the lineup for the White Sox. But probably not. Still a name worth monitoring and seeing if
absolutely
you get any more rumors. All right, Kevin. Well, a lot of names to consider. Putting on your watch list, adding to your waterfall. That's gonna do it though to close us out. So close us out with any other piece of advice that you can think of that is gonna help us out as we head into the 10th fab period of 2026.
Yeah, similar to last week, just kind of periodically check on things, make sure things are still the way that you perceive them to be. Last week, I brought it up with ballpark factors, and yes, there's a lot of noise, but I do look at just this season. Once we're into the point now where we've got over 5,000 plate appearances at most ballparks. The same goes for individual players. There are a lot of regulars out there that we just keep putting in our lineup on a weekly basis and don't realize they're not doing a thing for us, right? One that comes to mind for me, especially in shallow leagues, batting average is amazing for Taylor Ward right now, but he's giving you nothing else. So you want to take a look at individual players. Every time we're setting our lineup, don't just assume that these guys that we're throwing out there every week are continuing to perform the way we perceive they normally do. And so I would also start looking at, I do it earlier. I know some people still are saying they don't look at individual categories. We obviously do. We talk about our fab moves by category, but don't just assume, right? Power's down, batting averages are down, walks are up. Yes, those are true league wide, but Major League Baseball league wide, those are true. Each fantasy league is different, right? We have our targets, but those become different for every league we're in. It's not hard to figure out. We are this percentage of the way through the season. This is what I would need right now to be where I want to be in home runs. How many per week the rest of the season do I need? How many have I been getting? Am I close? Yeah, you need to be looking at this now. You get further behind than you think you are, you won't be able to catch up. So I'm always looking at categories and not just assuming I know which categories I need more of just by looking at the standings. I break it down, see how far behind you actually are.
That's excellent. As soon as you said, like, think about the names that you probably need to start pulling out of your lineup, and you just weren't thinking about them. It doesn't even have to be the big names, right? It can just be the names that you were pleasantly surprised about their first month. And Marcio Dubon is the one for me that comes to mind.
That's a good one.
111
WRC. Well, in the Bloom called these the Gene Seguras, right?
There you go.
He's out there in the lineup every day, decent batting average, not hurting your batting average, but giving you absolutely nothing else. Yeah. I mean, Dubon was giving you stuff throughout the. He was
until the pretty much until May, and then
it was great. Well, it was, but we unfortunately. We knew that's who Dubon was, but it was great while he was giving it to us. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's easy to forget about somebody like him too, because he plays all these positions. He's just the guy that you are almost forced to put into different positions. And for the first month or so, you're like happy to do so. Right. But then like, all right, well, this person's hurt. I can just throw Dubon in there. I can this person's hurt. I can put Dubon in that other position. Oh, wait, I don't think I want to do that. Actually,
in such a wide difference in rostership for Cody Clemens with his multi positions that he's eligible at. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Very valuable in 15s.
Always good to just keep an eye and there's no coasting in this game.
I think that's a great way to put it. Absolutely. And then I heard Vlad Sedler and Jason Anthony on the FTN podcast a couple of weeks ago And it was kind of funny. What Jason said to Vlad during the podcast that guys like us, and he was talking about the two of them, we're going to continue to grind. We know our bad teams are going to move up in the standings because we're going to continue to grind. Players like us do. That's the mentality you have to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if you're 15 teamers, if you're in 13th, 14th place, just know there's going to be plenty of other teams that are coasting, that are throwing it on cruise control, and they're going to miss a week or two. And if you're grinding, you'll see the difference.
Always got to remember Rob Silver, right? He was in like 14th place in his main event league at the All-Star break and won the overall.
Which is nuts.
That's phenomenal, right? Highly unlikely, but it's possible.
But there you go.
There's proof that it's possible.
Anything is possible. And there it is. There's the proof, like you said. Well, that is going to wrap it up for episode 256 of On the Wire. After all that, I am Adam Howe. On behalf of Kevin Hastings, thanks for listening. And we bid you goodbye.